Welcome to POMCLOSET, guys. Today I'm going to show you how to knit this sexy dress by using Addi Express machine. You will need the Addi Express king size machine with 46 pecks of 46 needles. There are number indicated on the machine. I have used this machine with many designs for the channel, so you can check this out. It's very simple to use. And here is the yarn slot. You can open it, close it, the row counter, the little pegs here, as well as the rotator, so you can do this backwards and forward. You will also need the cotton yarn from the hobby. Here are the Cotton King 4-ply. This is number 36 in beige color. Here is the white color number 1. So both are Cotton Kings from hobby. So I will be swapping between these two colors. For crochet hook, the path cutter, the tape measure. You might need the notepad, the pencil, the rubber to take some notes down here. The yarn needles. You will also need the ring, any size. This one here, it's like the key ring that I don't use anymore, so I will use this. For this design here, I will need to do the back piece. The front piece here, we will need 2 pieces. The sleeves, 2 of them, and the skirt, front back. So we will separate pieces and then connect them together. You need to position the first peg opposite the yarn slots here, and then I will start with the beige or the caramel color and do the zigzag front back like this. Very easy to cast on. And cast on for 40 stitches. Here's my 40, and then open this slot here, put the yarn back in, close it. I will clear the rows as well, and then you need to knit, rotating the rotator here backwards. Do it slowly. And the first row, first few rows. Back to the first stitch, and then rotating it back. I will do these colors for 10 rows. You need to be careful, sometimes it doesn't catch the yarn like this, because the yarn is not thick enough. Rotated it back and forth. Before completing the last row of these colors, I need to count in like 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my 5th stitch, so you can see here's opposite to the yarn slot. And then I will measure the yarn for like 3 inches, like 1, 2, 3 inches on this one here. And then I'll cut off the yarn, reconnecting the yarn in white just before you complete the row. So I don't want to waste too much of the yarn. How to connect the yarn, so you can, I will put the link down in the description below. After that, you need to knit to complete the row 10. So where you have connecting the yarn, it will be on the last stitch here, so you don't see it in between the piece. Now you need to knit 10 rows in white. Keep swapping between the white and the beige, 10 rows each. Then knit for 55 rows. Get the yarn off the yarn slot and use the crochet hook to cast this off. By transfer the yarn from the first stitch to the crochet hook, and then you need to chain 1. I recommend to put the stitch markers on the first stitch here. After that, keep rotating the rotator. Transfer, you have 2 loops on the machine. Put the yarn through chain 1. Next stitch, transfer, put the yarn through chain 1. Next stitch, transfer, put the yarn through chain 1. So keep doing this until you get to the last stitch. the last stitch, pull the yarn through, chain 1. Cut off the yarn for weave in the part where we have cast on, so you can see it doesn't look nice at all. I will start from my right hand side and try to find the yarn that you can actually pull the last stitch here. I would say this is this row you can pull the yarn through like this. If you can get the right yarn, you can pull it and it looks something like this. And then I will cut off the yarn and make sure you don't lose this end just yet. I will reconnecting the yarn in the same color. Use any joining techniques. After that, get the crochet hook, pull the yarn through on the first stitch, and then chain 1. That would be the first stitch on here. The next stitch, make sure you don't lose this end unless you get the loops here onto the crochet hook on the right hand side if you're right-handed, and release this end and try to hold it tight. Pull yarn through, chain 1. Next stitch, after you get the loops, you just let this yarn go and then pull the yarn through, chain 1. Next stitch, just repeat until you get to the last stitch. Try not to do it too tight. The back piece is very easy, it's straight piece. At the end of the row, just cut off the yarn and you will have something like this. Don't forget to put the stitch markers on both sides on row 20th. We will be connecting the sleeves on this part. Front piece, we need to do the same cast on technique as the back piece, but cast on for 22 stitches. After that, put the yarn back into the yarn slot, clear the row and knit it back to the first stitch. After that, you need to knit it back and forth for 10 rows of each color. Before the end of row 10, on the 5th stitch, when you count it in, you need to cut off the yarn, leave the yarn for 3 inches and bring the new color to connect. Then knit to complete row 10. After that, you will need to knit back and forth in white color for 10 rows. Before the end of row 20th, make sure you cut off the yarn and then reconnecting with the new color. Then knit to complete row 20. On this row, you will need to start reducing the chest part of the front piece, but because I have done one piece by reducing from my left hand side, so this time I will be reducing from my right side. Make sure you put the stitch markers on both sides, left and right. Then open the yarn slot before you get to the last stitch. Transfer the last stitch onto the one next to it. Then need to complete row 21. The next row, there is no need to reduce any stitch. The next row, knit it back, and before you reach the last stitch, transfer it to the one next to it. Then knit to complete this row. The next row, there is no need to reduce, so keep swapping between reducing and no reducing rows for the total of 26 rows. Use the yarn connecting techniques when you need it. After that, you will need to knit straight for extra 9 rows. At the end of row 55, you need to use the same cast off techniques as well as doing the nice edging at the bottom of this piece. Put the stitch markers on row 20th. Once you complete this piece, you need to do another piece and make sure you reduce the chest side on row 20th, the opposite side to the piece that you have done. Don't forget to do the nice edging on the bottom part of this piece too. Once the 2 front pieces are done, we need to work on this ring. By pulling the yarn quite long enough, I would go for around 1 meter or 1.5 meters. After that, bring the yarn needles. Then start working on this ring. I will insert the yarn needles through the ring and then get back to the knit piece by going up and down like this between the knit piece and the ring. Just go round, make sure you do it very tight. I will keep working until I get to the half part of this beige color, and then I will reverse this back to where I have started, inserting the yarn up and down like this. So just make this part very tight. Just to make sure it's tight enough, so I'm making my way back for one more round. Then you will need to work on the other side of the front piece by repeating the same process. I will use only half part of the beige color. Once this part is tight enough, so you just weave the ends in. Now the front pieces are connected to the ring. Then bring the back piece to connect by putting the right side to the right side. Put the back piece down first. Then bring the front piece to connect. Make sure you have the knit side to the knit side. Then put the stitch markers on all the way on the side part, the shoulder part, both left and right. To connect the pieces for the whole dress, I will use the same techniques by putting the front piece, back piece, and then pull the yarn through. Front piece, back piece, pull the yarn through like this for all pieces. Now I have connected the back piece to the front piece by connecting the side and the shoulder part. Now we need to turn this piece back to the right side. I want the knit part to show. For the sleeves, you need to cast on for 40 stitches using the same cast on technique as the other pieces. Here's the stitch number 40. Put the yarn back into the slot and make sure you clear all the row. And then knit it back. Then keep knitting straight for the total of 80 rows. Make sure you keep swapping between those 2 colors, the same as the back and front piece. Use the yarn connecting techniques when you need it. Here is my row 80. I will put the stitch markers on the side before reducing the armhole on this sleeve part. After that, you will need to use the crochet hook. Here is a 4mm crochet hook that I will be using. Put the yarn out of the yarn slot, rotating the rotator. Transfer the yarn from the last stitch to the one next to it. We will be reducing these, so make sure you have the notepad. This is going to be the armhole. The first row I have reduce on one side, so I need to reduce the other side. Before you get to the last stitch, transfer one stitch each side and then knit. Here would be row 81. For row 82, you don't need to reduce on this row because I want to reduce 2 stitches, 1 stitch each side for every 2 rows. But you need to make sure that you have the 10 colors of each rows. So I have just changed to the beige color by swapping this yarn, and then here is end of row 82. For row 83, I need to load it down and transfer the last stitch to the one next to it. Put the yarn back in and knit. Before you reach the last stitch, transfer, and then complete this row. This row 83. The next row you don't need to reduce anything. Next row, I need to reduce. Keep reducing and no reducing the rows until you get the total of 35 rows. I will count row 81 as row 1. No reducing. The last row is row 35. And then you need to cast this off. You will have 4 stitches left. Get the yarn out of this yarn slot here. Transfer the yarn to the crochet hook, chain 1. Next stitch, transfer. You have 2 loops on the crochet hook. Pull the yarn through, chain 1. Next stitch, transfer. Pull the yarn through, chain 1. The last stitch. Pull the yarn through, chain 1, cut off the yarn for weave in. You will have the shape of the sleeves like this. The total of the rows here, you have 80 until the stitch markers, and then you will have 35 after that. Bad news guys, I have lost one video of how to do the edging of the sleeves. Basically, you need to work on the last row where we did cast on. So do not change in between, just do the slip stitch or the pull the yarn through in every stitches. At the beginning, when we cast on 41 stitches, the measurement was around 17 inches, and now we need to check what's the length. The length I have so far, it's around 9.5 inches, so that would go around my wrist. This top here you can make only size S because of the number of the stitches. SM, I think that would fit. So here is kind of fit my wrist. And next step, we need to connect. So for this piece, I want to have the knit as the right side. So I need to put the knit to the knit and then connect on the purl side. Just you have the stitch markers here. And then the stitch markers where we have reducing the sleeves or the armhole. Put one here, stretch the piece a little bit so you can work along by following the colors. Now we need to, I'll take this out because I know where the first stitch is. Then use the connecting techniques, the same as the other pieces. So I have done the 2 sleeves here. You can see they're very identical. We need to connect the sleeves onto the body part by turning the top to the wrong side, which is gonna be the pose side. After that, insert the sleeves into the hole like this, and then put the stitch markers to connect between these two, starting from the under the armpit, and then just work along the length. Here's the shoulder part. Just put the stitch markers all the way around. Then use the connecting techniques, the same as the other part of the dress. There it is, the top part is finished after you connecting the 2 sleeves onto the body part. The back piece of the skirt cast on for 41 stitches and knit straight for 66 rows by swapping between the 2 colors, the beige and the white, the same as the other pieces. Then how to cast off, it's just using the same method or techniques. So rotating the rotator, transfer to the crochet hook, chain 1. I can put the stitch markers on. And the next one, we keep rotating the rotator, transfer, put the yarn through, chain 1. Rotating, transfer, put the yarn through, chain 1. Keep repeating this until the last stitch. On the last stitch, you just chain 1, cut off the yarn. Here's the back piece of the skirt, and then you need to work on this part here exactly the same as the other pieces. Here's the back piece I have done. Here's where I have cast off, and this end here I just use the same method as the other pieces. Skirt front piece, you will need to cast on 41 stitches and knit for 66 rows, the same as the back piece. After that, you will need to put the stitch markers on both sides, left and right. After that, we will need to reduce 1 stitch of each side. Before you reach the last stitch, make sure you transfer the last stitch to the one next to it, and then need to complete this row. I would recommend to put the note down so you know which rows you have been reduced. Next row, there is no reducing. I would reduce 2 stitches, 1 on each side for every 2 rows, for the total of 32 rows. At the end of row 98, you will have around 9 stitches left, and you need to cast this part off. Then you will need to work on the edging part of this front piece. Now we need to connect the front piece and the back piece of the skirt together by putting the knit side to the knit side. Put as many stitch markers on the side, both sides, and then use the connecting techniques the same as the other pieces. Here is the skirt on the wrong side. Now you need to turn the piece back to the right side because I want to show the knit. Then bring the top that we have done to connect. We need to work on this part by using the yarn that we have left off. Use the yarn needles to work on it. Just repeat the same process as when you connected the top with the rings. Just go as many rounds as you wish and make sure it's tight enough and weave all the ends in. Alright, this knitted dress is now completed. It's very sexy and simple to make, but if you're confused in any part of the video, please feel free to write it down on the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. I still have many more videos to create. Share the pictures of the works if you ever get to follow any of my videos on Facebook and Instagram account. Shop more items on POMCLOSET.com. Thanks for watching guys, and I will see you in the next video.